Hi, Drake. Welcome to the Artist Appeals. So psyched to have you on.
Thank you, Aaron. Welcome to be here. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you're a photographer, a professional photographer, and a nature photographer to boot. We always start out with, well, this season, we're starting out with 5 questions, and I'm going to zoom up here. I have them here on my computer, and I zoomed out. Here we go. So we're going to start with 5 rapid fire questions, fun questions to get into the meat of things. Number one, what is your number one top selling product or piece? What one piece of artwork has made you the most money or gotten the most recognition to date?
Okay, two of them in different ways. One, and it's this one right here, although it's much larger. You can see it okay, right?
Uh-huh. Path in the woods. Oh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yes.
Windy, curvy boardwalk through the woods.
It's called Meandering Boardwalk, and I hooked up with a shipping company a while back, and it's a number of years ago. And they
Mhm.
have a program whereby if you buy so much of your product, cardboard boxes, whatever else, they give you free stuff. Well, at that time, they really were doing a good job with the prints. They're promoting the prints.
Mhm.
Since then, they've added so many other things that the prints have really kind of fallen away. But at that time, they took this print and they printed it. Well, I had to pay for it, but I mean, they bought 16 by 24. It's kind of a poster style. I print
Yeah.
everything myself, but in this case, they wanted it lithotype.
Okay.
So it ended up taking off and became their number one, what they called seller, because it promoted so much of their product, and it obviously benefited me extremely well. It allowed me to get into art fairs.
Really?
Yes, that
How's that
that
work?
one print allowed me to get into art fairs, allowed me to get better photography equipment. That one
So you
alone.
just kept showing everybody this one print and being like, hey, it's,
No, I didn't actually. They got it in their catalog and they put it online. And when people bought
oh,
1,500 bucks worth of equipment, stuff,
uh-huh.
product from them, they got this free print. And what they did is they matted it and framed it. I just
Uh-huh.
had to give them the print, and they did the rest.
Well,
And
how did that come to fruition? Like, so you said you had approached them originally to
yes,
print
I
it,
did. Yeah, I
but
did.
then they came back to you and said, hey, we want to use this to promote, or,
No, actually, they haven't. They do it biannually, fall and spring,
mm-hmm.
and they have a review process. So you
Okay.
can submit images, some of which I wonder why they ever select, some of which, not for me, but others as well. Um,
Right.
and like I said, they've had people, different people, so things have changed and their philosophies towards this has changed.
Yeah.
I'm no longer involved in it anymore. But back then when I was, they had some people that really understood what art was and what people might like and that.
Mm-hmm.
And and what they did is I just contacted them out of the cold, clear blue.
Mm-hmm.
They latched onto this and said, geez, we have this program and we would like to include perhaps some of your images, or at least one of them. They
Mm-hmm.
ultimately took four, but five, actually, they took five, but over time. But what they did is they took this one and they put it into their program, which meant then that rather than I print it like I do everything else, they
Mm-hmm.
wanted in this, like I say, this poster style, this litho thing.
Yeah.
And so I had to go find a printer that did that, and they did it. And then I shipped it to them. They put a matting and a frame around it. And then when people bought 1,500 bucks, $1,500 worth of product from them, they got this free print.
Oh, wow.
Nowadays, yeah, nowadays if you buy, whatever, you'll get a free hat, or if you do something else, you get a free grill. And
So it
then,
was a promotion.
yeah, well, yes, it was a rewards, custom rewards kind of program for them. Yes,
Uh-huh. That's
and it did.
fascinating.
Yeah, it did so well. I mean, at that time, there were also some photographers from National Wildlife and others in there. So I felt very honored to be part of the program, to be
Very
honest with
cool.
you. And it took off, and that one print did better than they had ever done before. People all over the nation were grabbing them up. Yeah,
Well, it has a beautiful S curve in it. Hold it up again
that's
if you
exactly
got
how
it
I took
right
it.
there.
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah,
got that beautiful S curve and the 1 point perspective leading you back in through the woods.
yep,
That curving path, that S composition is very appealing. It's
yes.
beautiful. Thank
Now
you,
that
Drake.
was that's no problem. Now that was the most from a volume perspective, which ultimately came
Okay.
into the most uh, financial dollars. the one that has given me the most per one print sale is actually this one
Uh-huh.
as a triptych divided in thirds. And
Okay.
that's $2,400. And
Woo, love
it's
it.
20 by it's 20 by 40 panels. So it
Uh-huh.
becomes 40 by 60 split.
Mm-hmm.
And I sold that one time, and
Nice.
people that love it, love it.
It's
People
a
bought it.
beautiful piece. Now, you must have shot that with a pretty high resolution camera in order to be able to make it that big and divide it into a triptych, yeah?
I shoot everything, all of my photography, except when I specifically call out my iPhone photography on my Facebook page. But
Okay.
everything else is shot with a Canon 1DS Mark III
Okay.
camera,
Nice, nice.
which is
Very cool. So, what is the one thing you love to do or create the most? Like, what is your shtick?
I'll admit it took me a little time to figure this out as I started into photography, but it really comes down to landscapes. Now, landscapes can be defined as trees, for
Yep.
instance, or
Hmm.
other things like that, or the rivers. I like rivers a lot. I like water a lot. And I
Mm,
like fall colors. So if I can mix the fall colors with water or with the trees and the environment like that, I love it.
yeah. Are you a
Um,
water sign?
I don't know. I studied water in college, but I don't know. I don't know about a water sign. Um, but having said that, so that's what I really enjoy the most. I tried other things, experimenting and whatever, way back when I was first getting into this, and I quickly found out that I didn't enjoy it. And if I didn't enjoy it, I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Whereas with this stuff, do you have time for if I
Yeah.
go off on this?
We got an hour, but these are the
Okay,
first five rapid fire questions, although they're not
okay,
very rapid today, but that's
well,
okay.
whatever. But anyway, so I have to feel things when I take images, and I have to hear music. And if I don't hear the music, none of this is going to work. I end up throwing all the images away.
I like that advice. Everybody's always talking about when you're evaluating photography or a piece of art, how do you know if it's like a good one? And judges and people who are evaluating competitions, they'll say, well, it's got to have that something special, that something. So you define it as music, huh?
Yes, yes. I physically, well, I don't physically hear it, but I hear music in my mind when I'm out
Ooh.
shooting, whether it's at the lake, Lake Michigan, for instance, which is not far from us,
Uh-huh.
in the woods or whatever. I start to hear music, and if I can start to hear music in my head, and it can be a John Denver song, it doesn't have to be though. Then I know I'm locked on. I am connected to the scene. Period.
Neat.
But if I
What do
don't
you
feel
hear? Do you hear classical or rock
it
or
might be John Denver music. Seriously, and I'm a big John Denver fan, but it
okay,
doesn't have to
hence
be.
the hat.
Yeah, yeah. But no, it doesn't have to be. But I start hearing that, and I become connected with the scene. If I'm not connected with it, everything I'm doing that day is done. It's history. Throw it
Mm.
away. It's not going to work.
That is fabulous advice. We had another artist on and she's a painter, but she was talking about getting in flow state. A
Same
couple of
thing.
artists have talked about flow state and
Yep.
how, art brings this to them. It gives them
Yep.
this sense of losing track of time and being connected. And it's so fascinating to hear you equate it to music. That is really cool.
Yeah. I also equate my scenes to music
Mm,
in that not only do I have to hear music, but I look at the scene and I look at all this as part of, think of it as an orchestra. And
mm,
you got all these pieces of music playing different things together.
yeah.
It's not just a rock. It might be the multiple grains of sand next to the rock as a close up, for instance.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
does that all play together? And does this make that sound that I want it to make?
Right. Right. It's a composition.
Yeah,
It's a
truly, it
collection of
is.
things.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, what is the one thing you hate to do, create, make, or do the most?
Well, number one is people pictures.
Oh, really?
I don't deal in people pictures whatsoever. Like I told you before, I was experimenting. My daughter got married a number of years ago, and by virtue of being in the front seat, I said, I'm going to have my camera here,
Hmm.
period, in a discussion. Even though we hired professional photographers to do the wedding scenes and whatever,
Yeah.
um, I took some pictures during the ceremony and whatever. To this day, she will not show me what those people took. She uses my images to show off the wedding, every anniversary, and whatever else. But she never shows me what those guys did.
Really? Why not?
I don't think she liked them.
Well, they might not have
But
been connected to the subject as much
that
as you are.
exactly. So, and then I thought, well, that's not so bad. So I had another friend, one of the guys locally here, getting married, and I said, well, I'll save you a few dollars. I'll do your not the weddings, but the engagement pictures.
Okay.
How hard can that be? Well, that was enough. I don't need to do that anymore. I tell you, I
Yeah.
just threw that away. The other one I don't really enjoy is, believe it or not, wildlife.
Really? You're a
Yeah.
landscape photographer, but you don't like wildlife. Okay. Why?
If I, for one thing, to get the picture, I might take 100, 200 images to
Uh-huh.
get it to watch the thing come around, whatever. And so many of them are similar. You
Yeah.
know, was it looking this way or this way, this way, this way? So I may end up taking, let's just say 200 images. It might make me take me 3 hours to go through 200 images and
Mhm.
ultimately select the one or two that really stand out and kill all the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Delete the rest. So it takes a long time. The other part is I'm not patient.
What, you don't like sitting in a blind for 6 hours to see a
No,
fox and then miss the
no,
shot?
no. If I have wildlife scenes, to be honest with you, I catch most of them right out our front yard. The deer and stuff like that that walk in here,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
catch them then. Yeah, I'll go
Very
out. I have a
cool.
long lens, and I'll go catch them. But to be committed to wildlife, like I always tell people, there are a lot of great wildlife photographers out there, and I'm not one of them. I am
Very
locked
cool.
onto, yeah, I'm locked onto landscapes. That's what I do.
Hey, you know what works for you. That's what's
Yep.
important. All
Yeah.
right. So, what is the weirdest or funniest experience as an artist you've ever had? Have you ever had anything lost or stolen or dropped or, what's the weirdest or strangest story you have about your art?
I've been lucky. I've never had anything stolen, dropped by others, destroyed because of storms and art fairs or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I've been lucky in that regard. If we talked about it a little bit before, my conversation with Denali, if that fits right here, that may be the
Sure.
weirdest thing. Well, briefly, what that is it's how I got into photography full time. Um, I was working for Motorola at the time, and I knew that at some point I was going to retire from them early.
Yeah.
So in 2005, I ultimately retired in 2006. So the year
Okay.
before that, which by virtue I didn't know, in 2005, I took off and drove up to Alaska, drove the Alaska Highway.
Mm.
And my wife went with me for 2 weeks, and then she flew home, and then I was up there the rest of the time. So after we saw Anchorage and whatever, she took off, and I'm up there by myself. I drive into this little town of Talkeetna, which is the gateway to Denali for all these hikers and that.
Yeah, Denali National Park, right? It's like
Yes,
huge, right?
yes, Denali National Park and Denali the mountain, yes. And so I took a sightseeing trip. Now Denali itself is 20,320 feet or whatever it is tall.
It's huge. I saw it once when I was about 12, but I don't remember
Okay,
it very well.
well, three-fourths of the time, not three-fourths, I guess it's two-thirds of the time, it's covered with clouds, so you can't see it. The
Yeah.
day I was there, it was a beautiful blue sky, and the
Mm-hmm.
mountain was gorgeous. And so I had this opportunity to fly over it with a sightseeing tour for 2 hours, and I did. And I had my little, camera and shooting away all kinds of pictures, consumer camera and stuff. And I just felt great. And so I got home. I got back to Talkeetna, went and bike ride down to the river and sat down the river. And Denali is 80 miles away, and I still felt this incredible sense of power or feeling come over me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I didn't think much of it. I mean,
You
I
were in
did, but
awe of this mountain, huh?
yeah, it just was like this feeling coming over me. So the next day I drove up to Fairbanks, and again, it was a beautiful blue sky day. How lucky can you be to see Denali 2 days in a row against a blue sky?
Right, right.
And I'm listening to John Denver music as I'm driving. And again, this feeling came over me that I just didn't know what it was. So advance yourself about 2.5 weeks. I'm now home going through all my digital pictures on my little computer. At the time, like I said, it was all consumer stuff, And
Yeah.
I'm looking at them all, and I said to my wife, I said, "This is it." She said, "What?" I said, "This is what Denali was telling me. Commit to becoming a full-time photographer, professional photographer."
And she
So I
went,
did.
"You're nuts."
She went and said, "Who's ever going to buy your pictures?" I said, "No, not
Oh,
these."
ouch.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. I said, "Not these." I'm committing myself totally. And when I sold all my consumer equipment, bought all professional gear, bought a bunch of magazines, but books to get into
Yeah,
this stuff. I'm totally self-taught. So anytime I felt that I had an issue with something, I researched how to get out of that issue,
right.
whatever that was. If I didn't
Yeah,
like something, I studied the heck out of it and worked to get better. So that's,
fantastic.
if that's weird, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Denali said, be a photographer.
Yeah. So when I left Motorola in 2006, I was already on my way.
Fantastic. You had a plan,
Yeah.
man with a plan.
Yeah.
Mountain told you to change your life. I love it. I love it because I have heard of other artists, they find this calling. Sometimes you just get this calling. And sometimes you don't. But if you hear it, you hear it.
It
That's
worked
so
for me.
cool. All right, last, number 5. What is the one most important piece of the business advice you would give to yourself if you were just starting out again today? Because you do how many shows a year? You do this full time now, right?
Yeah, but I only do 3 shows now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because of the pandemic.
some of it. Yeah. What I'm doing is, um, now this doesn't answer your question for just a second. It bridges on to the other question. But what I'm doing is I'm committing myself to more Facebook advertising,
Okay.
or Facebook sales, online sales. Let's go back. Facebook being one aspect of that.
Right, right.
Um, I started a couple of years ago saying, this art fair stuff isn't necessarily the right thing to do, as I'm sitting there like you on a Sunday afternoon and
On a
nobody's
hard
coming by
bench.
because it's so hot. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, this isn't so smart. Let's make this thing work. Because I know it works for other things, Amazon being an example of that.
Right.
So how can I make this work? Um, so I'm getting out of, not necessarily getting completely out of art fairs. I'm doing 3,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm committing much more to going online. And
Cool.
yeah, full committed online, in it. In
Mm.
fact,
In it to win it, baby. I
that's
like it.
right. That's right. In fact, I'm using David Emmons. I got into his course,
Yeah.
and I started taking that, and then I got into his what do they call it? It's a one-on-one training session. I forget what he calls it.
Mastermind. Let's call it a
Yeah,
mastermind,
a
shall we?
mastermind. Yeah, yeah. I'm into that with him now, and that has helped so much. I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it to look him up because,
Yeah, he was on the podcast, and that's how I
okay,
connected with you. Is I said, "Hey, who are some of your artists that I should talk to?" But he was on the podcast, talked about his program. It's really cool. I did check it out because I was like, "Well, you can be on the podcast after I check out what you're offering." So he was kind enough to give me access, and wow, talk about overwhelming hours and hours and hours of materials on Facebook advertising and all that good stuff. But it's focused on creatives, and that's what we need. Is we need people out there just sharing it all. I mean, really, that's the point of this too, is to just share our experiences and share everything we know with everybody else, because let's face it, making a living in the arts is hard, right? So
yeah.
let's just be completely transparent and share whatever we've learned with everybody else, so that maybe somebody else can learn from it too.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I went with David. I mean, I've had training and other things. I was doing the stock photography for a while, and
Yeah.
and talking about online, I really believed for a while, bought into, let's say that, the SEO thing. If I can
Okay.
make my website SEO perfect, da 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 da, great
Right,
things
right.
will happen. Well, that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Then granted, everything kind of evolves and Facebook comes around or
And
whatever.
for you guys listening, SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's where you
Yes,
put keywords on your website that you think people are going to be researching and looking for, right?
right. And it didn't always work.
Yeah. Well, it's a long-term investment,
Oh,
you
very
know?
much so. And it changes,
Yeah, yeah. And you got
you
to
know.
keep at it, and you got to research it. You can't just guess what you think people are going to be looking for. You have to research those keywords and see what the statistics are and da, 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 da,
Right.
da. I have a friend that does that for a living, makes a very good living at it. He's not an artist, he's actually an SEO expert.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have to have both. You've got to have some advertising and you've got to have some SEO. What do you
Yes.
think?
I, I agree. My daughter actually does this for a hospital, major
Oh,
hospital, and she's
she
in
does their
charge of,
SEO.
well, in the Facebook marketing. She's in charge of that whole program, kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
And she volunteered to teach me, and I said, Aaron, her name's also Aaron. I said,
Ah, cool.
I don't even know what question to ask, so I'm not going to waste your time. So then when I started looking around the SEO stuff, she'd give me all kinds of books to read from the courses or not courses, but the seminars she'd go to and stuff like that. And I'd
Yeah.
read everything and I'd put all that stuff on my site and behind the site. And I mean, I know more about this stuff than I care to sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Facebook advertising came around and she said, Dad, I'll teach you that. I said, again, Aaron, I'm not smart enough to know what the question to even ask. I don't want to waste your time. You're busy doing your thing. You don't need to be teaching me.
That's sweet of
So
you.
yeah, well, it is what it is. So that's when I started looking around and I got into David's thing,
Yeah.
primarily because he was an artist. He was well, he's not always a visual artist in a sense, but he is with his,
He's a
uh,
craftsman.
yes. And so I said, okay, and here's a guy who's been to art shows. I can immediately relate to him.
He's very
So
real.
very real. I mean, man, he could just be sitting right next to you as compared to being in Vermont,
Yeah.
and relating. And what I like about him is he doesn't do stuff. Now, I did take that online course of his,
Hmm.
and I it took a lot of time to go through that. And then I went through it
Hours.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
I went through it again. Just, slowly I'm learning this stuff, but it's like, okay, whatever. So then when I saw David's opening come up where I could have this one-on-one training, this mastermind class, or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like fantastic. I'm a firm believer of lifelong learning. And
Mm.
I'm a firm believer of doing it myself until a point I need some help. I
Hmm.
can get smart enough to ask the questions. Then I got to have somebody who can ask the questions too.
Yeah. That
And
is
I
so
also,
true.
and I got to be smart enough to know that the person I'm asking the questions to really knows the material,
Hmm. Hmm.
not just buying something or selling something. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
All right.
David, yeah, David fits that.
Yeah, he fit that bill. Well, if you guys want to listen to that episode, David Emmons was on season 3. Oh, geez, I'd have to look it up. I'll put a link down below, hopefully. Season 3 or season 4, David Emmons. You can search the site, The Artist Appeals. So now let's get into the meat of the topics, which is the appeals acronym. So I just use this acronym: appeals, art, product, presentation, educating your audience, well, essentially marketing, amplifying with automation, licensing and contract, and success. So it's a simple acronym to kind of organize a whole bunch of information in
Sure.
something digestible. So you're an artist, you're a photographer. Um, we always talk about art, and we actually kind of heard your story about how you found your voice. Denali spoke to you, and you're into landscape photography. But let's talk a little bit more in depth about maybe some of the technical stuff for the geeks out there. How do you make your art? Like, what is your process? How often do you go out and shoot? Um, any tips and tricks you want to offer about photography in your art form?
Sure. I go out by the weather,
Okay.
believe it or not.
You go for
I mean,
that golden hour, those golden
well,
hours,
no,
dawn and
I
dusk.
don't do that.
No?
No, I just don't want to mess with that stuff. I mean, if I'm in the area at the time and whatever, sure, but I'll shoot in the middle of the day. Ansel Adams did, and some of those shots make great black and white shots because of the contrast.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us all permission. I love that. I don't know if I've told you, but I've done a lot of photography in my time and
Yeah.
have been a fine art photographer. And you always hear people talking about the golden hours, dawn and dusk when it's that yellow color as
Yeah.
the sun's sinking. And yeah, that's beautiful. But sometimes you're just not there at the right moment.
Well, and some scenes don't fit.
Yeah.
The shadows can be way low in the trees. You're not going to get these shots. They're going to
Right.
not work.
So you shoot
So
whenever you want. I love it.
I'll shoot whenever I want, however it looks. I've got some great scenes of Lake Michigan with the sun up at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
that sun is a beautiful sun star, and people love it because that's what they see. They didn't see the sun star, but they see that.
What's a
I'm not
sun
going to go out
star?
there. Yeah. So I mean, it's those things. I'm not afraid to shoot any time of day. I'll just go out there and I've got lenses to accept those things. I mean, to make the sun star out of a sun in the middle of the day or whatever the case may be.
Is a
Um,
sun star a polarizing effect? Do you use a filter to do that? Like it's
no,
got little beams
no.
or?
Here's a trick. Now you have to have, some of it is physics. The lenses need, I think, I forget now, 8 or 9 blades inside of them. I forget what it is. I think it's 9.
Okay. The
Yeah, I think
parts
it's,
that open and close to make
yeah,
the aperture.
I think it's 9 blades to make it 8. I think it's then to get 18 stars out of it. I forget the exact number, but set your aperture to f16
Okay.
or lower, 16, 18, 20, 22, whatever it is. Yeah, which will slow your shutter speed down.
Okay.
Now, when you do that, here's my first point I tell anybody who comes into my booth and says, how do you do that? I said, you're not going to handhold it. You got to use it in a tripod.
Of course.
Have a steady
Tripods,
tripod.
folks.
Yeah,
Gotta have the tripods.
got to have a steady tripod.
Yeah.
So that's how you do it. Turn it into f16 or greater. And be careful when you look at it because it's going to amplify it in your eyes. So I don't look into the viewfinder so much. I look away and kind of watch it. But yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
So I'll shoot anytime. In fact, I just drove to northern Wisconsin. It takes me 4.5 hours to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I got there at 10:30 in the morning. I'll shoot until 4:30 at night. I don't care. I mean,
Nice.
it doesn't matter. The time of day, it does not matter to me one bit. I will adjust it. I'm not always, now I will say this. There are times where it's too bright sometimes. Well, then I'll look into some other spot, like in the woods. It's more shadowed in the woods and places like that. So
Yeah.
yeah. Or this river scene here, as an example, you can see it, but this is a good example. The other day I was up at a place, it was overcast at 12 o'clock. Beautiful. Everything came up perfectly. Well, shortly after that, the sun came out and everything was destroyed because it's too bright.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a matter of the timing, per se, the time of the day.
Right. Right. Nice overcast day will really help you allow you to get more detail in, right? Do you shoot HDR?
Actually, no, that in my
Okay.
mind, and what I've seen is an overcast day, it tends to be less contrasty. So you'll get greater, but it's less contrast. So I actually don't like overcast days.
Okay.
I'm a contrarian in many ways of my life.
I was just filming earlier today a little bonus video for my course that I'm building, how to photograph your art. And I was talking about how wonderful a diffuse day is for photographing art outside if you don't have any lights.
Yep.
But I mean, that's a whole different matter because when you're shooting artwork, you don't want a whole lot of contrast. You don't want bright whites or dark darks. You want nice diffuse lighting. And it's overcast and cloudy today here. So I was like, yes,
take a
this
sheet
is
and
what
put
you
it over
want.
the top. Yeah. Take a white sheet and put it over the top and then shoot through it. Yeah.
Yep. I was just talking about that. Yeah. You can use a white sheet. Just go to Community Aid, Salvation Army, whatever. Get yourself a set of white sheets or a piece of thin white fabric. Yeah. You can do that with just regular light too. Although, you're going to get color cast, of course. But that's, the next little thing I have to film is how to use your phone to remove those color casts if you don't have, software. Sure. So anyways.
Okay. So going back to your question, what are you? Okay. 1DS Mark III.
We digress.
Yeah, camera. I use all Canon L lenses.
Okay.
I do that specifically. I've got a couple of zooms and a couple of primes.
Okay.
Specific for certain purposes and things like this. I do not use one of these lenses that go from 70 to 500 or something like that. They're very, very specific for what I'm doing.
An L lens is, I'm a Nikon girl.
Oh, I'm sorry. An L lens, Canon makes a variety of lenses, and professional class of lenses is what they call their L lens series.
Okay.
They'll be the big white ones. The telephotos are the big white ones. And then on down, they'll have the red, and unfortunately I don't have one here to show you. They have the red rings around them.
Gotcha. I've seen those.
Yeah, so that's as compared to their consumer lenses.
Hmm. The
Um,
glass is just better.
yeah, and internals and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, you'll get. If I didn't have those pictures, I couldn't do this right here. Are these lenses? I mean, I couldn't do this.
Well, that brings us to P for product. So why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you do those prints like that if you didn't have those professional quality lenses?
The clarity wouldn't come through. The depth of it wouldn't come through.
Hmm.
Um, Now I process everything on Lightroom,
Okay.
and people can argue. And I can, in fact, I just had a guy compliment me on an iPhone. I took a shot of the river
Hmm.
and put it on Facebook this morning. He goes, "Well, that's not an iPhone picture." So, well, yeah, it is. But I put it in Lightroom and I processed it a little more than just right out of my camera.
Right.
But I would never print that. You know, these pictures are taken with a 24 megapixel camera. I
Hmm.
think it's 24, something like that. 20, maybe it's 21, but whatever it is. Um, and those lenses are so sharp, and that's the thing. It'll pull out. In fact, I can take a picture of a deer with a 400, I have a 400 millimeter lens, and you'll see the individual hairs on the deer
Wow.
as close as within. I get close enough to do that.
Right.
Um, or the feathers on the birds, or the rocks, or things like this. It's the clarity. It's that detail that I can never get with anything other than the lenses that I don't want to talk about Nikon because I don't know Nikon's lenses, but as far as Canon goes, with anything other than the lenses that I use. And by the way, if you look at a lot of other photographers, professional photographers, they're using very similar gear.
Yeah.
The Canon L lenses or whatever the Nikon equivalent is, but
Right.
they're at that level. They're not messing around with the consumer type of lenses.
Right.
Then what I do, like I said, I process it in Lightroom.
Hmm.
Um, I
Love
may only
Lightroom.
keep 15% of my pictures that I take.
You just delete them outright or do you archive them?
Delete them.
Good
I don't
for
even want to see
you.
them.
Oh my God. How do you do that?
I just go through them. I don't even want to see them. I just pick this one, this one, this one, this one, can them. In fact, I was doing this morning. I had 100 and some odd from this shoot the other day. I was going through them. First thing I do is go through every single one and make sure they're in focus. If they're not in focus, gone. Then I go through, just delete them, just clear them right off my computer. Then I go through and select if there's more than one. That's usually I only take one or two of the same scene,
Hmm.
not 15 or 30, but just a couple. I'll pick the one I like and I'll go from there. Then I'll start processing them.
Hmm.
And I may get down to about 15% that I ultimately keep, 15 to 20%. And all the rest are already deleted off my computer. I don't even keep them.
Good for
So,
you.
yeah, so they're
That
history.
that's some serious commitment.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just I don't want that stuff. I don't need it. I only want to show the really good stuff, and then from that, there's a small portion that goes on my website, and a lot of the other ones go off to, in this case, um, Adobe. What's it called? Anyway, it's Adobe. Their stock photography. I guess it's
Oh,
Adobe
you
stock.
upload your others to, so you put some on your website and some go to Adobe Stock.
Yes, yeah. So I make
Have
some of those available through Adobe stock, and then
have you
going back to,
linked Lightroom to Adobe Stock?
I don't, I
Okay.
dump, I
You
dump
just
everything
upload
out.
them.
I just
You have an
upload
account and you just upload them.
them. Hmm.
Oh, nice.
And
Does
then I
that
print.
generate a revenue for you? Have you found that successful in
Hold that thought
creating
for 1 second,
yeah.
and I'll finish up then real quickly about the prints.
Yeah.
I print everything myself on an Epson P7570. Let me look at this. P7570 large format printer.
Nice.
So, and I use Red River paper. I do it because I've tried labs and they have not come back with the detail and the depth that I want.
Right.
And it's a true story. If I don't like it when I print it, I'll rip it up.
Hmm.
It doesn't go out of here, because I view the print as a final vision and the final artistic aspect of it, of
Yeah.
everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so it's not
Wasn't
until
it
I'm
Ansel
happy.
Adams said the print is the performance of the
Oh,
composition?
right. He's right. He's absolutely right. And so the if I dump the print to a lab, I've only done half my job, and they're going to take the rest of it and do what they want to with it, how they want to with it,
Hmm.
and I have no control.
Yeah, they
And
might not have the same vision.
exactly. And so what I do is I go through here, and I may print something, and I've done this. I actually had and it sounds stupid to some people, but it's true. I actually had a guy buy I guess, 11 by 14 print. So it'd be a 5x7 or something like that, or whatever it is, image itself.
Mhm.
By 14, whatever the size is.
Yeah.
I printed
11 by
that,
14's a good
yeah,
size.
I printed that 4 times because I was not happy with it.
Yeah.
I just took it and ripped it up and sent it to him. When the guy got it, he was just like everybody else is when they get them. They're flabbergasted. They're amazed, which is what I want them
Beautiful.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took printing. I took digital fine art printing with John Paul Caponegro up in
Okay.
Maine. He
Mhm.
was on the show too, and he pulls so many prints. And if it doesn't come out exactly the way he wants, he just keeps printing and
Yep.
printing and printing until he gets it exactly the way he
Yep.
wants. And I asked him, I was like, "How many prints do you pull?" And he's like, "As many as it takes. It could take
Yep.
20 or more. I don't care." And his vision is so, the range of his color accuracy and his values is so broad that his prints are really quite amazing.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. That's so cool. And that is presentation, right? We're talking, you led us so nicely into the next into the
Yeah, but
next
I think I
segment
jumped your
about
question.
presentation. No, I think I asked you if you did HDR, but I'm guessing
I
that the
don't.
answer is usually no.
I don't. All of my images, and I've had people ask me this, are they HDR? Are you doing this? Are you photoshopping them? Well, you got to explain what that means. I use Lightroom,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do not do HDR. Everything I do is single image.
That's so cool. Very
People
cool.
can't believe it.
Well, with the lenses you're using and the printer you're using, it sounds like you've just got the pixels there and the glass there that can support that.
And if I didn't, honestly, I'd go out and get it. Hey, the true
Nice.
story, I actually had to get a new printer this year.
Yeah.
My last one, which was a Epson 7900, failed on me just about Christmas time this year after about
Yeah.
7 years. So I
Mm.
bought a new one. And
Yeah.
I was using a different kind of paper. Every paper I use is a high quality cotton rag paper.
Yeah.
You won't buy it at the local stores. And so I put that paper in there, printed out an image, and it was crappy. I couldn't
Mm.
believe it. I just absolutely couldn't believe it. All I did was got a different printer, same manufacturer.
Yeah.
I actually had to switch papers. I had to start looking around for papers.
Okay.
And I found a whole new paper, cotton rag paper again, though,
Hmm.
that then finally got me back to where I wanted to be with the quality of you mentioned the colors, with
Yeah.
the colors coming
Yeah.
out and the detail
Yeah.
and the depth and everything else. Finally got back to that. It took me over 2 weeks of exploration. So
Have you ever tried that velveteen fine art rag paper?
yeah, I've tried different papers, and I use this smooth cotton rag paper now from Red River.
Okay.
Um,
So you like a smoother, not as much grain or as much texture
yeah,
to your
it, it,
paper?
it gives more because when people walk in, I want them to feel as if they're part of this print, like they're
Hmm.
standing right there in this river, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does that. And what
Yeah.
I found, at least for me, because I got a package of demo paper from a couple of different places,
Yeah.
and when I would do that, it just lost something. I didn't know what it lost, and I know it works for a lot of people, but variety of papers just lost it. And so I latched onto one and said, "This is it. That's all I'm doing."
I like that you just, when you find one, you stick to it. So with framing and presentation, I notice you're not using mats back there and glass. What tips and tricks would you give for presentation? What are your favorite presentation tips?
Okay. When I'm at art fair, I'm going to go back to this for just 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. See this frame? This is
Yep.
a handmade oak frame, not
Okay.
by me. Okay,
Hmm.
not by me. I used a lot of these frames, different colors. One wall was this frame with a kind of a black sort of a tint to it. One
Yeah.
was a kind of a maple scene, and one was clear like this. And people would come in and say, "We don't like your frames." Well, forget the frame.
That's all right. Ashley Longshore was on. She swore like a sailor.
Oh, okay, well, whatever. But forget the frame. It's the image. It's the print.
Yeah.
And people say, "I don't like your frame." So it's like, forget that. Don't even think about the darn frame. So I got away from that completely, and I went to a product. And so I got away from all kinds of framing completely, which is actually pretty nice because it takes over half an hour for me to actually frame a print inside of this with all the
Yeah.
darn dust that gets in glass and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a pain in the butt. I've done,
it's
cutting
yeah,
the mats. And if you're, you waste all these razors because you got to change
Yep.
it every single time, or else it's like ripping the mat, and
Yep.
you
Well,
got to
I got
have
my,
canned
yep.
air, and that's really some of the biggest expense in artwork is matting and framing, right?
Well, it can be a headache, yeah, and the frames and stuff. So I have my own mat cutter
Mm-hmm.
and I cut my own mats. And in art fairs in the booth, I will have mats, matted prints. Only 16 by 20 matted and 20
Mm-hmm.
by 24 prints matted.
Mm-hmm.
So people can buy those.
And then
Then
they're in a
I'm,
sleeve,
yeah, they're in a sleeve.
like an
Yep.
archival sleeve. Okay, yeah.
They're in a clear bag
Mm-hmm.
company that I use. And then what I've done is now forget the fact this is Velcro because it's only done that way on my booth. This is not how you hang these in the room. But I was having problems with people saying, well, I don't like the way you hang the pictures and stuff. So I said, okay, I'll take care of that problem. I got in the booth, I got these are pro panels
Mm-hmm.
and I put Velcro in the back. Now forget the Velcro because in real life you will use these little sliders. But
Mm-hmm.
this is what is called a Duraplaque print.
Duraplaque.
Duraplaque, yes. It's a company out of
Uh-huh.
Colorado.
Okay.
And you can kind of see it a little bit here. I
Uh-huh.
print this on paper,
Uh-huh.
printed on the exact same paper as this one is.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
I send it out to Colorado and I
Uh-huh.
actually sign it, as you can see right down here,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Right on the print. I like
right on the
that.
print. Yep. Then
Yep.
I send it out to
Your
Colorado and
signature
then they
goes
mount it.
with the print, not with the mat.
Not with the mat. No, it's always all of my signatures, as is here too, always on the print.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
acid-free ink, but always. And so I send this out to Colorado and they mount it to what they call this eco-friendly board. And again,
Mm-hmm.
forget the Velcro. But then when people hang it, they'll give them little screws to put in the walls, hang it with this slats back here, and then you go on the wall and they look like this. And there's no more matting or framing,
I
period.
like it. I
So
like it.
whereas you used to have, or still do have, you know, this mat doesn't fit my couch, it doesn't matter. Does the print fit your room? Sure does. You're sailing.
I love that. It's very modern. It's a lot more modern and clean, I think. Just that simple black edging.
Yeah.
Um, I was always I always did double mats, 3, 4 inches, black frame. I actually have had artwork rejected from a New York gallery because I did a little something different with the frame. People can really have a strong reaction to matting and framing. And so
Yeah.
um, I like what you've done. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Well, and the other thing is in my booth, and I use cotton rag mats too, crescent cotton rags. Um, I only mat in white, off white, like this.
Yep.
If you want, it's like Henry Ford said about his cars. I do it any color you want as long as you want black. Well, in this case, I'll do this any color you want as long as it's going to be white. And some people say, well, why don't you use green or blue? I said, because I will guarantee you, I will have the wrong color blue or the wrong color green.
Mm-hmm.
If you want green or blue, buy the print, go and have your local person do it. They will have far more inventory than I ever would.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like it.
yeah.
So on to E, we've covered art, product, presentation. E for educating. So how do you educate your audience? How do you market to them the quality of your prints and your materials and the archival attributes and the paper you're using and this and that and the other thing? How do you communicate and educate your audience? What is your favorite methods and techniques?
Well, I'll say that's an ongoing process.
That's why I ask it.
Yeah. In art fairs, yes. In art fairs, I have a small Duraplaque, like a 6 by 12 or whatever, or something like that, that I can just grab a hold of. And I
Uh-huh.
use that as a demo. And I have a small matted print, and again, a small one like this, much smaller than this, matted, that I can flip up and show them, and they can touch it and feel it and whatever, for the few people that care. What I
Yeah.
have found initially is most people don't care about the product. In other
Hmm.
words, I used to tell people right away, oh, it's acid free, this and that, whatever. Who cares? Don't care. Do they feel? They don't. But can they feel part of the scene? Does the scene grab them?
Hmm.
Then they might ask me, what's this made out of? And I'll tell them. but they sure didn't care. If I told you this all was acid-free red ray or red river paper, da 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 da, it's like, who cares?
Right.
Don't care.
So instead, you tell them a story about the photograph
Print.
itself.
Yep. Yep. But in other words, this image here, well, let's take the birch trees. You can see them here.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will say, well, this just pulls you in, and it really does, if you can see it closer. Pulls you in and this and that, whatever. Where'd you go? And I'll tell them, and I'll tell them the true story. I've driven by this thing in northern Wisconsin many, many, many times in my lifetime. And on that given day, it was in the morning, by the way. It was like 10 o'clock. It wasn't at
Okay.
6 in the morning.
Okay.
I was driving along at 60 miles an hour on this road, 2-lane road, and I happened to look and just remember I told you I was shooting digitally in my mind all the time. I saw the light shooting through these trees. Boom, 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 boom. I hit the brakes real quick before I ever looked to make sure no one was behind me. And I slid into the ditch, into the shoulder area. I jumped out and I took a bunch of pictures right there of that scene.
Nice. Yeah.
I'll tell them that. They don't
Yeah.
care. Then they might ask me, what's this made out of? How'd you do
Right.
that? And then I'll bring out my little demo and say, well, it's made out of da 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 da.
Right. Right.
Up
No,
until that
that's
point, I never touch it.
That's fantastic. I heard that same type of thing from Jeffrey Stoner, another photographer was on the show, and he is known for photographing goats.
Okay.
He photographs these goats that they placed on top of a mountain as a conservation effort. They had a lot of invasives growing on this mountain, so they
Mm-hmm.
decided that they were going to put Angora goats on top of the mountain. And then to keep the goats, they put a couple of Great Pyrenees to guard the goats. And so he's got these incredible photographs of these large white dogs and these goats, and one of them's like a baby goat standing on top of the Great Pyrenees, or
Sure.
and he tells these stories about them. He gives them names and they look like they're laughing and smiling, or this baby goat standing on top of the Great Pyrenees, or another goat headbutting the Great Pyrenees, like trying to fight over the rock, and how they want the highest point. And he tells a story about him and he writes it on the back. And he says that's what sells his work to people more often than the archival attributes or the paper, like you're saying,
Yeah.
is the story behind them.
Yeah. Nobody cares. They don't care one bit. They only care after the fact. You go buy a car. Do I care that it's made out of, whatever, gauge steel or whatever else? Heck no. I only care, will it get me from point A to point B without falling apart?
Or you might care about the story the car is telling about you as a person. That's why people buy Jeeps, right? Because that tells the story of them being an outdoorsy person
Okay.
or being into outdoorsy activities. So they care about the story that the print or the artwork or the car
Right.
tells about them as a person and how they choose to live.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, honestly, nobody really cares about the materials until after they've kind of made their decision to buy it. Now tell me why this is different than the guy over there.
okay.
Why are your prints, why are your colors so good? I'll hear that. Why are your colors so good? Why is this? Why do I feel like I'm part of this? Why,
Right, right.
now let me explain why that happens and why they can't duplicate that.
Right. I like that though. I like the point you're making, that really that there's two stories. That you've got to have them connect with the print first, the image, and then they connect. Then it's the benefits of why you can't get it from somebody else, why it's printed so well. And I like that. So it's almost like two stories you're telling
Yeah.
them.
Right. Now, if someone says, and I've had this happen, they'll come to my booth and they'll look at a print and they'll say, and I can tell they're doing this, they'll go off to somebody else's booth.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back again. And I can tell that they're looking at it and saying, I can get a print quote like this over there for $100. And this one's 125. Making that up, but whatever.
Right, right. They're price shopping.
Go ahead. Um, if you don't see the difference, I'm never going to be able to explain it to you.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. All right. A for art, P for product, P for presentation, E for educating, A for amplification and automation. Here's where we get to be geeks and talk about the technical stuff. So, how do you scale? How do you get bigger? This is kind of where that Facebook advertising comes in, or apps. What are your favorite apps? What are your favorite business tips and tricks that you use to get more work done with less effort?
Huh.
Did I stump you on with this? Let's
I
start
don't.
with I know you shoot on your phone. You said you post your iPhone photography to Facebook. What's your favorite app for shooting and working in the iPhone?
I use the camera that's on there.
Okay.
That's it. I just and then I now it's not easy because I dump it again. I only take a couple of those pictures and I will dump them into Lightroom.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll evaluate them in Lightroom and do the adjusting and things like this. So whereas most people might take a picture and shoot it and then they'll send it up to Facebook, I don't do that. I
Right.
very rarely do that.
Right.
Um,
Do you use the Lightroom app? You know they have a Lightroom app for the iPhone.
yeah, I don't.
It's fun. It's about the same, and it
Yeah,
syncs with Lightroom.
right. I know. Yeah, but I keep everything on the desktop and because there you have to use the cloud, and I don't mess with the cloud. Everything's right on my computer in that
Good
regard.
for you.
And the other part, let me back up on a second real quick. I don't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt, but
go, go.
I like to I don't want to say compartmentalize, that's not the right term to say, but when I'm out shooting, I want to be doing that. When I'm out doing this, I don't want to be bothered by something else. When
Mm,
I'm committed to working on my images, I want to see it on my 24-inch big screen that's color monitored already or color profiled. I don't
hmm.
want to be messing around on this little phone, then looking at these images again over here.
I
Um,
see. No, that makes sense. You don't want to do double duty.
yeah, yeah. So I'm very compartmentalized in that regard. And in fact, people say, "Well, did you take good pictures today?" I don't know. I won't know until I dump them on my computer. I don't
I
even mess with them. I don't even want to think about them. I just want to keep going. So, um, so
like
there's
that. So
that.
when you're shooting, and when you're editing, and you only
Editing.
want to do it once, you do it right on your computer, and you delete all the ones you don't want. It's brilliant. It's
Well,
brilliant. I love it.
and I
It's good
may edit
advice.
over the course of a couple of weeks because I may go
Mhm.
through, like say this morning, spend 2 hours on it, and I'll let
Yeah.
those images sit for another week and a half maybe before I go back to them
Hmm.
and then start processing them again. I don't want to get too big of a hurry to do that. Uh,
Right, right. That makes sense. I have so many, I mean, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know. I have 60 or 70,000 photos in Lightroom, and you can't
deal with
mentally
them.
process that many.
No,
So
no. You got to catalog them and everything else. I don't want to mess with the ones that aren't good. Just out of here.
good. I like that advice. That's good advice. So focus on what you're doing one thing at a time. If you're shooting, shoot. If you're editing, edit on a big monitor. If you're deleting and making selections of images, just be decisive about it. That's the hardest thing, being decisive, isn't
Right.
it?
It's decisive. Yeah. Just do it. And you asked about some of the other things. I'm terrible in the sense of time saving. I have taken with David's help. Um, he has helped me learn all about Facebook advertising things like this. So that's my
Yeah,
goal. It's to get better on that whole process and
right.
actually make money off of Facebook's advertising and all of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And through him, he has opened my eyes up to a few other things like this. If you've ever used it, text expander,
Oh yeah, copy and pasting.
kind
It's
of, yeah.
essentially like I haven't used text expander, but I just use a regular Word doc, and or like in Gmail I'll use Boomerang,
Yeah, I
which
don't know. If
saves a it's like text expander a little bit. Um Boomerang for Gmail saves a template email
okay,
that you can just open up, rework and send off.
send off. Yeah,
Yeah, or
yeah.
if you want it to come back to you, it'll boomerang back to you to remind you to follow up with somebody.
Okay.
Um, so is text expander like that?
No, text expander allows. It's like macros in the old days when you used to have Word Perfect before Word came around.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I've dated myself, right? So, but you had
Maybe I
like,
have too, because I actually know what a macro is.
okay, there you go.
Mm.
See, there you go. And it's kind of like that. I mean, for instance, I have three letters, QEM. That'll enter my email address. Boom. How often I have to do that every single time I enter into a program that I want to get into, you know, or other
Okay.
things like that. And it can do a lot of text.
Hmm.
I can do the same thing. In fact, I do it. I have a QFP, I think it is, FPS for a Facebook post script. So there says, have a great
Oh,
weekend, Drake Fleege or Drake, da 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 da, or whatever it is. And then
yeah.
powderphotography.com. That's the
Uh-huh.
ending. So I have a number of those kinds of things. In using Lightroom, if you use Lightroom at all or
Yeah.
something like that, I have so many times where I have to type in, because I type in location always on my captions.
Okay.
So right here, Pike Lake Unit, Kettle Moraine State Forest, Hartford, Wisconsin. It's a
That's a
pain to
lot.
type that constantly.
Yeah.
I just put all that in, and I preface it by saying within Pike Lake Unit, da da da, PL, QPL, boom, I hit that, and that comes up.
Oh,
Or
nice.
Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado, Estes Park, Colorado. How many times am I going to type that? I don't want to. I just put
Right,
in
right. So do
RMP.
you keep like a cheat sheet on your wall or something of these hotkeys? Because otherwise you got to memorize them, right?
Well, it helps to memorize them over time, yes. However, that's the other thing about text expander is if you hit, I don't remember what it is, backslash something, it'll come up and it'll tell you. It'll give
Okay.
you a cheat sheet right there.
Oh, nice. Okay. Now I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to check out Text Expander.
yeah,
That sounds cool. So it's a little different than what I was thinking it was, but it sounds really cool.
yeah. It saved me a lot of time. I mean, David is the one that turned me onto that. So there's those now. I because I'm so detailed, I tend not to be one of these guys that just hit it and gone. I want to know a lot more about something. I want to make sure that my correspondence is right. That
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I use MailChimp, and I
Yeah.
will, and I'm starting to get better at that. But even at that, it's like it takes me an hour to put together something that looks good and
Yeah.
makes sense to people, and
Yeah.
and I'll let it sit and I'll go back and look at it a day later to make sure I didn't misspell something or it
I'm
reads right.
horrible at spelling. And
Yeah,
sometimes I'm moving so fast because I've got kids around that I hit send and I'm like, well, that was really
that's right.
unprofessional.
That was the wrong word. Totally.
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So
well.
I'm always trying to do things better, not necessarily more expedient.
Okay.
I mean, I try to do more expedient, but the quality of the thing is the most important thing to me.
A true photographer, spoken like a true photographer. I like it. Okay. So L for licensing and contracts. I like to hit on licensing and contracts because a lot of artists, I think, are scared of licensing and contract terms. So, are there any tips or tricks that you would offer for licensing your work or contract terms or contracts that you have in place? Now, you said you upload a lot of images to Adobe Stock. I totally want to hear about that because that's licensing right there. Um, so tell us a little bit about that, and then let's talk licensing and contract terms in plain English,
Okay.
because I think that's what people get scared by is the legalese.
Yeah. First of all, from a legalese kind of person who understands photography, Carolyn Wright, she's known as the photographer's lawyer or lawyer photography or whatever. She's a photographer by herself, of
Hmm.
herself. I mean, as well, she's a lawyer. So she
Oh,
deals in
nice.
contract law and whatever. So if you're kind of interested,
Yeah.
follow her Facebook page. She's really, got some good stuff.
What's her name again? Karen
Carolyn Wright, W R
Carolyn
I,
Wright.
yeah, WRIGHT.
Okay, I'll have to
And I
look
forget
her
it.
up.
It's like a lawyer for photographers or
Hmm.
photo law or something like that. I forget exactly how she's got it, but yeah, it's worth it. Um,
Cool.
Now in Motorola, I have had years and years of experience with contract law. I
Right.
didn't write it, but I was in sales, so I had to understand it and deal with it and
Hmm.
negotiate it.
Hmm.
Um, so when I started in photography and started into this stuff, what I have found is a lot of people don't understand licensing and they don't want to, or they understand
Why
it really,
not?
really well and they don't want you to think they know it really, really well. So when I was doing this, I always, and I still to this day, anybody wants something, I will write the proposal. I will give them even a print. I've had the
Hmm.
problem where somebody, I knew this person was going to be like this, send them on a custom. If they want a 60 by 24, that's easy, but a custom
Hmm.
size,
Yeah.
I'll send them a proposal completely what this is all about.
Hmm.
It's going to be this, going to be this, going to be this, going to be this, going to be this. I'll do the same thing with licensing contracts. I'll write
Hmm.
a proposal to them. That proposal that I send them must be included in the contract.
Hmm.
Period. End of discussion. It's not going to be accepted, unless that's in there. If they want to make changes to it, they certainly can. And then I will rewrite the proposal, which
Right.
will include their changes. But that's going to be in the contract. Too many people have.
So the
Go ahead.
proposal you write, like in a Word document, you write your name, your address, the date, your contact information, and then you outline this is the size, this is the medium, this is the like you get specific, right?
What am I going to provide you? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For custom printing. Now, if someone wants just a regular print, like I said, 16 by 24, I want this, boom, take it off the website, away you go. But when people wanted to get custom printing, custom sizes,
Yeah.
I want 16 by 27 and a half. Okay, let's be clear what that means.
Right, right.
You know,
And then you outline the paper and all that good stuff
the whole
too.
9 yards. Yep, I do the whole 9 yards at that point in time, because now if they're on my website buying, they see all of that on the website. It already tells them that. But
Mm-hmm.
because they're coming in with this very specific purpose, I have this feeling that I'm not about to get burned.
Mm.
So I will tell them completely. I will assume they have not read anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll give it to them. And I had a problem with this one time where, I don't know, the person worked over like 3 different sizes. I want a 30 by 40 and a 30 by 33 and a half and a 30 whatever. And finally I just said, I'm not going to give you the price anymore. You figure out what you want. So he did. So I sent it to him. He wanted a Duraplaque print like
Mm-hmm.
that. And let's just say it's 30 by 23. I don't remember the dimension, but it was
Okay.
weird.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, I can only print 24 wide, so it had to be wider than that because I had to go out to Colorado to get it printed. So I
Okay.
had to find a place that printed with the same paper I did on the
Mm-hmm.
same ink set that I did.
Mm.
So I did. So I sent this person this proposal and told him, and by the way, just so you know, there's a 3/8 inch border around all the Duraplaques. Just add that in. Most people aren't going to care.
Mm-hmm.
How big a wall do you have? Well, this guy got all excited. And I said, okay, I spent the last 5 weeks messing with this. We're
Mm.
done. I'm no longer going to deal with custom issues. I've had
Yeah.
too many changes. We're done.
Yeah.
Now, the reverse of that is I don't normally have that anymore because I took that off there and there's, you want this? Away we go. If someone does come in with another one, I'll be happy to do it, but it will
Right.
always be a proposal from me to them in detail. What am I going to do? The reverse of that is I had a guy, I should have known better, paint our,
We should have
paint our
always
house.
known better.
Yeah, I should have known better. Paint our house. And I said, okay, now, Mr. Sales Guy, you got to brush it. You got to do this. It's a log home. And you got to do this and this and this and this. Yep, got it all done. When the guys came out to do it, they were going to spray it. I said, what the hell are you doing? You can't spray this. Won't work. Oh, yeah, well, it'll work. I said, it won't work. You go ahead and try it. They wasted 2 hours before they realized that I was right.
Hmm.
And I went back to the contract. All of the stuff that we had said was never written in there. Shame on me. I should know better. Now I had the same situation with the hospital, not the hospital, but an art designer, art consultant, they called them.
Okay.
She was looking for prints for the hospital,
Okay.
and she picked out a bunch of prints. And because of the way it was, they wanted to print their own. I said, no, I got this feeling that I'm being taken. So I said, I will print them. Even if I didn't print them, I'd go find somebody who could print the size I wanted.
Right.
I keep that under control. No, I'll print them. So they worked up this whole deal, and let's just say there's 30 pictures. I don't remember what they wanted. And she came back and said, okay, we'll do this for $2,000. I said, yeah, but you didn't include these other 20 images. Oh no, we'll do those too. I said, no. We got to talk about these other 20 images.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
said, you'd walk for $2,000? I said, yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
End of discussion. That's it. I said, you have to talk to somebody else, not me. You're not getting 30 images for $2,000.
Right. People try and take advantage of artists. They
Yes.
seem to think we're so desperate and so hard up that our work is so easy,
Yes.
maybe because we love it so much that we should just give it to them. That they don't know what goes into it. And that's why I asked that question about educating your audience is, you know, I think part of being an artist is having a honest and open conversation with your collectors about the work that goes into things so that they feel like they're buying something special and that it's not just easy and you should just, oh, well, I don't want to pay for it because it just is so easy for them, you
Right.
know?
Now, along with that same thought process is if you give something away, there is no value.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you give them a gift, if I put a price on, let's say this one here, let's just call it $30.
Mm-hmm.
Sake of argument. Now I'm going to give this to you. It's $30. It says in my proposal, this is $30, but I'm giving it to you because of whatever. And I will
Mm-hmm.
certainly make up a reason why I'm giving it to you. So you know that there will
Right.
be value. You will feel this. But if I just outright say, you're a nice person, I'm going to give this to you. You're going to say down the road, a guy gave it to me. It's probably worth $5. Big deal. Who cares? So and I have donated things to people. And
So
I'm
you do
very,
a proposal for donations too, for any sort of gift or any, um, I've had companies approach me or nonprofits approach me for donations to auctions. So
yeah,
you do a proposal for those as well.
no, although you just gave me an idea to do that. On
You're
uh,
welcome.
yeah, let me back up a second. I've done silent auctions at
Mhm.
art fairs, and I usually give them something that I don't really care about anymore because they don't care. I've never
Mhm.
had any return in silent auctions. I actually quit doing it.
Yeah.
Um, Over the course of the pandemic, I gave some. I had little promotions, two of them for
Mhm.
10 prints each, to healthcare workers.
Mhm. Oh,
Any
that's nice.
healthcare worker that was interested in one of my prints, they had to take those prints specifically off of my website. I didn't pick it for them. I wanted them to pick it. And I wanted them
Mhm.
to tell me why that image meant something to them.
Mhm.
And when they did, then I would send them a print, and it was like 16 by 24, some were 11 by 14s because they were easier to ship.
Mm.
So I would send that to them. So it felt right away that image meant something to those people.
Right.
In there, I would send them a letter that said, "Thank you very much for everything you're doing during the pandemic." Um, and they would always tell me why this affected them. They're the people that really would
Yeah.
hit,
Yeah.
and why that print would help them. So obviously they put it on the wall. They're going to always remember that. I tell
Yeah.
them the story about the print,
Mhm.
why, going back to the education thing, how it came to be that I took that image in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, and if there's a little more to it, then I would tell them a little bit about that. And so those people I know got something out of these images. To them, it was more than $125 or whatever, because they knew the value. I told them right up front is, I'll give it to you, but it's worth X. But here's what you got to do for me.
Now, did
And
you end up using those as sort of testimonials?
I did.
Fantastic. What a wonderful,
Yep.
that's great. It's great marketing because they've gotten a valuable piece that spoke to them and you've gotten those wonderful testimonials of what it meant to them. That's great. I love that idea.
Yeah.
So, did you build a form on your website? How did you connect with these people?
No, through Facebook. On
Oh,
actually a couple different ways, but it was on Facebook. I would put out a note that said, this pandemic, and again, when it first started, who knew it was going to be as long as it did and everything else.
yeah.
So it was over the course of a couple of months, one in say May of last year and another one in the fall or something like that. I'd put it out there and say, well, in fact, what spurred me was there was a doctor in like March of last year from New York City that killed herself. She was
Oh,
an ER doctor and she was overwhelmed with all of this. And I don't remember exactly
I
where, but
hadn't heard
somewhere
about that.
out east. Yeah, somewhere out east in that area. And she was in charge of the ER, in charge of whatever, and just killed herself. So it's like,
Ugh, that's
what can I
horrible.
do? Well,
Yeah.
what I can do is if people connect to my images, and I'll put a limit, I put 10 at a time, when I did
Uh-huh.
this, I will offer to the first 10 healthcare workers. I
Mhm.
don't care what position you are. I had doctors, I had, people working in nursing homes. I don't care. I don't care if
Mhm.
you're the person mowing the lawn. If this bothered you in any way and a print of mine can help you through this, I'll
Mm.
give it to you. No questions asked. It's worth X amount of dollars. All I ask is you tell me which one you want and why you picked it.
Mm. I love
And so
that
I did.
story.
Yeah.
That's not just marketing, it's PR, it's public relations. It's doing something for somebody. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's what can I do? What can I help them?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, last letter. We're coming to the end. S for success. So we did art, product, presentation, educating, amplifying, licensing and contract terms, and S for success. So my question here for you is how do you personally measure success? Because if you read any of these goal setting books or, success books, self-help business books, they always tell you you've got to set goals, right? And I think we as artists, a lot of times, set goals, but then we don't really stop to take into account whether we've been successful with whatever it was we were trying to do. We just jump to the next thing. Oh, I'm going to make this next piece of art and I'm going to try and market it and blah, 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 blah. So how do you define and measure success? What do you use? Like, how do you reward yourself and determine what is success in this world of art?
First thing I do, I mean, I'll start with this. Money is easy to say you're successful or not based on money, but I don't use that. Yes, I need money. My wife says, "Why are you charging these?" Because I need money to do things. I need money to do this stuff. I
Yeah.
need money to buy my lenses. I need money to do these other things.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
got money to buy the paper that you print on.
right, and with money allowed me to give these prints away to the nursing home, or to the not the nursing home, the healthcare workers. It
Oh,
allowed me to
yeah.
sponsor 3 virtual concerts over the course of the year during the
Oh,
pandemic,
that's
to
cool.
help other people through the pandemic. A
Yeah.
friend of mine is a professional musician. I got him to do it, and away we went. So I need money, but money isn't how I view success.
Right.
Um, Rather,
Few of the artists use money as their moniker of success.
yeah, even when I was in sales, people ask me, "How come you're so successful? Are you concerned about?" No, I don't give a damn about the money. Excuse me.
That's all right.
It's if I do these other things right, equating to this, if I use the right paper for me that provides the right colors and the right contrast, et cetera, and the right images, and the people walk into my booth and they go, "Wow," or these healthcare workers that go, "This touches me because of dot 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 dot," which equates out to other people saying, "Wow, this one, I feel part of this mountain scene, or I feel this." You know, that to me is success partially. Now, when they start paying for that, that's another vote of success.
Hmm.
Um, and I break it down on multiple categories. I mean, working with David, and I'm learning this advertising, this Facebook advertising. I've had success in some of those advertising. Not
Hmm.
that anyone's bought anything yet from that, because it hasn't. But by virtue of how I'm learning all about this, targeting audiences and things of
Hmm.
this.
Layered targeting. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fascinating stuff, huh?
yes. Why learning more about that, and some of the things that I thought was going to be good weren't, and some of the
Hmm.
things that I thought weren't going to be good are getting better. So
Hmm.
it's like, you know, those are small incremental successes to me to get to the end goal of where this starts to take off, much like he's doing
Yeah.
successfully.
Yeah.
So those are those things. One, here's another sign of success, if you want to call it that, is I happen to find this out too late, but a person with dementia, and people with dementia in the evening and whatever, they start to get a little bit wild sometimes. Not crazy wild, but just
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. A
and
friend of mine told me about that. It's something to
yeah.
do. Yeah.
And so one of the people that worked at the nursing home with them happened to find my website, and they knew me, and they showed them my pictures of my website. And this particular person latched on to one particular scene. There's a water scene and things like this. And when they would see that scene, they settled down.
Mm.
And so this person kept that picture on her phone, so that when this person would come in and get excited or whatever, let's just take a look at some pictures again. Boom, there it was. And it's like, that's great success to know that, and I didn't know it at the time, but to
Yeah.
know that it affected people in that regard, you know, that means I'm doing something right.
That's a fabulous story. I love that idea. Once again, public relations in a way too, the idea
Yes,
that an image can cause someone who has dementia to calm and to settle. That's
yeah,
that's so beautiful.
yeah. So once this person told me about this, the one who had it on her phone, I immediately took that print and framed it up with one of the frames I had left over and gave it to her.
Oh,
Said, "Here,
so
this is
cool.
yours. To your wall." So there are those types of things that to me are success. Now, am I making a ton of money? Not yet. You know, it'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that is a real life example. You know, I interview people on this podcast that have had tons of success, like Ashley Longshore. She says she earned like $1 million in 2015 without gallery representation, but she's the exception to the rule. The rest of us are just trying to muddle through it and figure it out and make a living at it, you know? And some of us are doing more, some of us are doing less, but I want to thank you for sharing all your tips and tricks and just being so candid and honest with us because that's what it's all about. Like I said, that's the point of this podcast is to talk to everybody I can get my little claws on, my little paws and claws on of how are you doing it? What are your tips and tricks? And you've given us some really good ones. I
No,
really
I
appreciate
hope
it.
so. I mean, when I got into this, I tell people, and I have a blog that for art fairs more. It
Yeah,
tells
what's
about,
your blog, Drake? Tell us.
well,
Tell
my
us your
my
address. Give us all your
website is powderhillphotography.com, all one word.
spell it.
POWDER, Powder Hill, HILL, photography.com.
Powderhillphotography.com.
Photography.com. Yeah.
And you've got a blog, you say.
Yeah, the blog's off of that.
Okay.
And in there, if you're doing art fairs, I specifically wrote a series. I mean, there's some in there that's philosophical and some talks about a whole series talks about my story about different images, talking about that, talking about explaining to people. So, and that's going to become more video on every image within my website over time. But that's
Oh, yeah. You're going to do videos?
on every, yeah, I'll tell you a little more about that in a second if you want. But
Yeah,
the
totally.
blog portion, anybody who's interested in art fairs, I've written how I do art fairs, why I chose this over that, why I'm doing this, what's my experience here, what about that, da, 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 da. And I do that because it goes back to what you said. When I first got into this, for a whole host of other things, I asked an awful lot of people a lot of questions and read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And it's the only way I learned. And I spent a whole year going to art fairs before I ever bought a tent, learning from people, tell me about this. Why are you doing this? Or just nothing more than watching them.
Yeah.
Watching people pack up. What are they doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I wrote all this out for the real reason that maybe it will help somebody else.
Yes, I love it. So go to your website, powderhillphotography.com, look at your blog, and you have a whole
section under art fair
section on art fairs. Oh, I love it. I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out. I haven't done I've done some craft fairs but I've always done fine art shows. I have never done the big craft fairs. What are your favorite craft fairs, by the way? You said you only do 3 now. What are your big
I only
three?
do 3, and actually, believe it or not, they're all right here within 10 miles. It's an old farmhouse or farm barn that they've converted into an event type of place.
Yeah.
And they've done a marvelous job of spreading all the vendors. There are probably 150 of us out there. And they spread us all out. So instead of being all connected in a little block area, they got 6 here and 10 over there and 15 over there and whatever.
Right.
And all this spaciousness. So it's a place where people can just hang out all day long, listen to music, eat something if they want to. And it's so casual that people do. And then they'll stop by, and instead of like race through and come back and they're done and they saw it, they'll stop by 2 or 3 times. They'll say, hey, I got to go my husband to show you or whatever. And so
you can really connect with people.
Yes. And that's why I like it. I like it there because, well, for one, it's 10 miles away, but that aside, it's just so casual. People, it's not like downtown, I don't want to say downtown Milwaukee, but someplace else. We're just outside and we're not pushed away. We're just a lot of space for everybody. Multi-generational families show up there.
Cool.
Kids on up to
and that works for the pandemic too. More space, right?
Yes. And yeah. Although I didn't do it last year. They did, but I didn't. I said, I can't control that in a 10-foot booth, but I'm doing them again this year. Yeah.
Good.
You just asked me another question.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the
success, measuring success. Yeah. Well, tell us about your social handles there as we wrap up, at least at the very end. So we've got Powder Hill Photography. Is that your Facebook too?
Yes. Everything is off of Powder Hill Photography. If you go to my website and clip videos, what I was going to say. If you go to my website, clip way down, you'll see Facebook little icon. Click on that. That's my Facebook. Is also Powder Hill Photography. I think it's actually Powder Hill. Yeah. powder photography.
How did you come up with that name?
Um, well, a couple things. One is I wanted a name that stood out for nature,
Hmm.
but wasn't geographically located. In other words, I
Okay.
live in Kettle Moraine, Wisconsin, so Kettle Moraine photography would be here,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean much. There's
Yeah,
a
because you
hill,
photograph everywhere, right?
exactly, yeah. So there's a hill right behind us actually. It's called Powder Hill.
Hmm.
It's a came. It's a geographical feature, which other than being right here, nobody knows about it. It could be a hill out in Colorado for that
Yeah.
matter,
Yeah.
or someplace else. But yet at the same token, Powder Hill refers to nature.
I like it.
As compared to just say Drake Fleege photography, a lot of wedding photographers are their first names, or
Yeah.
first last name.
Yeah.
So so that's how I came up with it. Actually, my wife came up with it
I like it.
one day, and I said, "Well, that makes a lot of sense." So I did the research to find out if anybody's taken it. Nobody has. I said, "Well, I just did." So boom.
Cool. Cool. And
Right?
you said you're going to do videos. That was the
Yes,
question. You were going to tell
videos.
us about
Yes, I'm
forthcoming videos.
one of the things David has helped me with is a lot of understanding videos. I was kind of was against him before,
Mm-hmm.
and he's helped me understand that that's not the position I should be in. So, and I'm doing the video with my iPhone, so it's no big deal. But I started doing video ads, doing a display like this, and talking about some of these prints. I've got a couple of video ads placed right now on Facebook.
Hmm.
Also, on my website, I have my artist statement, which is a written document like everybody else has.
Hmm.
But I've also taken that and talked about my artistic vision, the Denali
Hmm.
instance, and
Hmm.
all that, and I put that as a video, and that's also now on my Facebook page, or excuse me, not Facebook, on the homepage as well as on the artist statement page.
Mm,
So you can go there and you can listen to me. Um, I have a little thing about how to run my gallery because people are getting a little confused with that, perhaps. And
right.
and then on this one here, which was well, it still is, but I've also changed it. It tells a story about this print, much like we
Hmm.
talked about. And
Yeah.
so I put a little video like that on that page for that print. And my intention is to do that on many, if not all, of my prints.
Very cool. I love it.
So
What a great idea. Well, Drake, thank you so much. I'm going to have to check out some of your videos. I'm excited to see them.
thank
And I want
you.
to thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Great
Thank you so
experience. I love it.
much.
Thank you.